Hey, what's up, guys? This is Jake Lapp, accompanied with my longtime Brohim partner and co-host of the podcast, Caleb Henshaw.
How you doing, everybody?
So yeah, guys, this is kind of weird, especially with starting with podcast number one and going off my most recent post on Facebook. We've been thinking a lot recently on how we can make a positive impact on our friends. Most of you, besides for maybe a quick chat here and there or seeing each other's posts are at one time, seemingly genuine friendships have turned to barely acquaintances over the years. And, that's what happens. But when I run into people, I'm always so excited to hear about their successes and how life is panning out. But the conversation normally goes, "Hey, man, how's it going?" And the response is normally like, uh, pretty good, hanging in there, another day, another dollar, or something like that. Money is such a touchy subject, and during small talk, it's frowned upon to talk about it, or it can come across the wrong way. Personal finance has become, such an important part of my life, and it's consumed the better part of my life for the last 5 years. Whether through reading books, listening to podcasts, audiobooks, online forums, or just talking to other successful people I meet. I personally, didn't come from much. However, you guys, my friends, and my family over the years have really helped me realize that I was capable of much more. And after starting a business in college and to networking and get in the field that I work in, continuing to do side work, getting my real estate license, and eventually starting to buy rental properties, I have a plan and I'm working towards my goal of replacing my day job income with passive income from real estate in the next few years. This option in life is not a secret, but it's not something that's taught in school either. And it's not something that comes up in normal conversation. I'm the farthest thing from an expert in this field, but I'm looking to keep growing and share the things that I have learned and implemented in my life with my friends and you guys listening. So I wanted to build a platform to now take some of that knowledge and hours of podcasts and audiobooks, being a landlord, personal finance, the trade skills, things to do stuff cheap, and hopefully stimulate some new ideas in finally breaking that cycle of what's considered the norm in trading our time for money until we retire at 65 and then can finally enjoy life. This mindset has helped us both immensely, and finding the like-minded people to have these discussions with are so essential. A good idea with no action or no listener is pretty much just as good as a bad idea. Me and Caleb spend at least an hour or two a week in total just on the phone, picking each other's brains on things that came up, situations with the rentals, little projects we had to do, ideas we have, and having that other person to tell us that we're being stupid or that there's maybe a better way to implement that idea. Either way, having that backboard and someone to hold us accountable towards achieving our goals has been extremely beneficial. And the goal here of this podcast is to spread that mindset, to eventually create a community for at least some of our friends to start and grow and build off of each other from. This building wealth thing isn't a secret either. There's plenty to go around. It's not just for rich people. I hear a lot of excuses for being stuck in the paycheck to paycheck lifestyle, or, oh man, Jake, I wish I could do that, but it's just not for me. Or maybe if I had the money, but I'm not going to say that it's easy or you can work your 40 hours a week, spend your nights and weekends on the couch watching Netflix and become wealthy. But if you're willing to put the work in now and want to create generational wealth and potentially create enough passive income to quit your job forever, we're here to say that it's possible without coming from money. In no way are either of us experts, but we both have taken the plunge and realistically see retirement as an option before we're 30. In a lot of other podcasts, people are vague on the details of how they built their success. And what I really want to do is get exact. I want people to know that what exact steps were taken in building capital. Like, how did we make the money to put it down? Finding deals. How did we go about finding something that's going to make us money? Negotiating, rehabbing, just general planning and having good personal finance and spending habits. So with that, I want to give it to Caleb so he can introduce himself and talk a little bit about his background and how he got into real estate.
So my background growing up, we had a pretty big family. My older brother and 2 younger sisters, and both my parents. And my dad worked as a floater at Hatfield Meats, and which meant that we didn't have a whole lot of money. But just because we couldn't get what we wanted, we always had it. They always made it so we can get what we needed. And I remember on the weekends we would get coupons from Hatfield Meats to be able to get meat from in store, and that would be our treat for the week, to be able to eat lunch meats and all that kind of stuff. But it kind of put into my mind that money is not the most important thing, but without it, it makes everything else a lot more difficult. My dad was transitioned into working with computers, and that led me along the same path. And he would get old machines and would have the both of us fix them up and get them running for the rest of the family. And it was always funny bringing friends over to our house because everyone else had one family computer, but we had a whole office with 5 or 6 different computers inside of it, and would always blow people away. So that led me along that path going forward. But I remember specifically every time I had a problem, I would ask for help, and he would always tell me to figure it out myself. And in the time, I thought it was a mean thing that he wouldn't help me out. But growing up now, I realized that that led me down the path of knowing that anything that I ever came across, I would be able to figure out and solve it myself with just enough time and energy. And through school, I just started taking IT classes and transitioned into a few part-time jobs during school, which paid the bills and helped me learn what I needed to learn to eventually find out what I needed to actually do with software development. And it took a lot of time to learn the trade and a lot of 16-hour days, 7 days a week to pick up the skills I would need to fully transition into a job that would pay for an actual development career. And it eventually happened at the company I'm currently at, and it really changed my mind on what I should be doing with my time. As the days went on and time spent at work, I kind of was putting the pieces together that over time I would still be trading every hour for money back, and it was not a scalable business plan. Saving money had taught me that you can really do a lot more than you think than what you can with the money coming in. And Jay Clapp showed me to a strategy of purchasing rental properties, fixing them up yourself, living in them so you can claim residency to get a cheaper down payment, which made it much more of a tangible opportunity than trying to go on a straight investment approach. Having a house to live in that was your own, you got the satisfaction of fixing everything yourself. It really did kind of change my perspective on things. I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which kind of cemented the principle of making your money work for you, and how these strategies can give you so much more freedom and opportunity in your life, where you can have your regular income from your job to give you what you really want in life, but everything that you would need would be covered by these decisions you make now over the next couple of decades. I spent a few months looking at properties with the money I'd saved from work in my day job, and it was pretty challenging. We found some properties that were really rough, even had one that we were told would have bed bugs in it, and spent the rest of the day sketching that we had bed bugs and leaving our clothes outside to take a shower inside, and had some other rough places that we saw that could have possibly been a deal, but really just would have been way more work than it was worth. Eventually, I found a property in Quakertown, a split row home duplex, up and down units, and we ran the numbers on the building, and everything came back that this was a steal and deal, and I took the dive.
That's awesome, Caleb. So to kind of get into that deal, your first one, how exactly did you raise the capital? Where'd the money come from?
So that was just my biweekly check would come in. I would only spend what I needed to spend. Of course, there was some frivolous things in there, going out for drinks with friends and all that. You can't always get away from spending that money. But at the end of the day, if you can write down exactly how much money you have coming in, how much is regular going out, and you can see exactly how much money you can save and comfortably save, and then exactly how much time you can save up for a specific amount. And I had stuck to that over time, playing defensively, not trying to spend a lot of money on toys that would be really cool to have, but wouldn't really be needed. And that took about a year and some change before I finally had enough to actually be comfortable spending it on a house. But it was just spending as little as possible, and I didn't have to do anything crazy with taking extra side jobs or anything like that. It was all just for my day job.
So how much exactly did you have in the bank before you closed on this deal?
In the bank, I had about 45,000, and comfortably to buy this deal, I would need about 50 grand, because like the whole calculations came out to that cash to close, it was going to be 40 G's, and with 5 extra left, I was pretty strapped to make the deal happen. But actually, through some negotiations with the seller, with some of the findings we found from the inspection, we were actually able to get a lower price on the cash to close, which made it much more tangible.
Did you end up pulling any funds from the crypto?
I did, strictly just to have it in case I needed it, but I didn't need any of it. So for those of you who don't know, back in 2017, 2016, there was a huge craze of everybody buying and trying to get into cryptocurrencies, Ethereum, Bitcoin, and all those. I had jumped into them at the time as a nest egg for the future, and I had preemptively pulled some out so that I could have cash reserves ready to go, but it was not something I'd wanted to spend. So I kept that as a last resort just in case.
Well, that's awesome. So what did you say? You said split level duplex. How did you find it?
So that was right off the MLS, from a licensed real estate agent. He gave us access to the MLS right from his website, so I was able to look through and find each multifamily property as they came available. And we scheduled a showing with Chris, my real estate agent, right when we could, and checked it out that afternoon, and that was that.
You said earlier you saw it was a steal. How did you know? How did you analyze the listing price to, if it's a good deal or not?
So the calculations seem complex, but when you get into them, they're actually pretty simple. What you need to know specifically is what comparable rentals are going for in your area. And that's as easy as just opening up Zillow, searching for rentals in that area, clicking on them, and seeing how much they're asking for which bedroom and bathroom. If you see another apartment somewhere else with 2 beds, 1 bath going for $1,100, but it's got less square feet, and then you see another one for 2 beds, 1 bath for $1,500, but it's its own separate house, you can meet somewhere in the middle and pull out a price. And at the end of the day, this isn't rocket science, so you can actually just come up with your own number as long as it seems like a good mix in the current market that you saw on Zillow. You can list your property at that, and using those numbers, you're able to calculate how much money you're spending on the mortgage, which came directly from my mortgage broker. He broke down the numbers for me, exactly how much I'd be spending month to month, using rough estimates on utilities for electric and water. You can normally pull those from whatever you're spending now and give it a padding just to make sure it's a safe number, because it's hard to tell in different townships what those prices will be. Once you add up all your expenses, your mortgage, your taxes, your insurance, your utilities all together, you come up with your monthly expenses, and then you just subtract that from your monthly income. And you will, using this strategy I chose of claiming residency to get a lower down payment, you will only be able to rent 1 unit. Personally, I chose the smaller one strictly just for being able to get more money per month, and that was the single bedroom, single bathroom unit at the downstairs, and then I chose to rent out the upstairs. So comparing those two together, it was $1,250 was the number I came up with for the rent, and the expenses came out to around $1,200 to $1,150 per month, including all those and more mortgage, insurance, taxes, and utilities. So it was a net positive cash flow of around $50 to $100, depending on the month of the year.
You said that you claimed residency. Um, I want to go back and ask if you personally, do you factor in things like a vacancy rate or capex, capital expenditures, saving up for when the roof goes, or if you need a new heater or something like that? How do you factor that in?
So that's a pretty common thing for people to do, to factor capex into their rentals. And I believe it only makes sense at scale, because if I say I save $50 to $100 per month, it would pretty much delete the current cash flow I'm at now. And if an actual capital expenditure came my way, I would never have enough from that $50 to $100 a month to cover it. So the way I do it is just try and keep as much capital reserves available to make those. So say $5,000 to $10,000 in the bank account, just strictly to cover if, say, the water heaters, there are two. So if both of them were to simultaneously explode and the roof went bad all at the same time, I wouldn't be asking my friends for money. So that's just something I do.
So you treat that reserve as a piggy bank that you pull from and replenish off of the cash flow. So like, if you were buying this house, you want at least $10,000 in reserve, and then as you pull from it, you can slowly put money from the cash flow back into that account to save yourself on that end.
Exactly. Strategy or philosophy I choose is just don't over leverage myself on the cash to close for new deals. So if a deal was, say, $45,000 cash to close and I only had 50 or 45, that would leave me with nothing in the bank to cover any unforeseen expenses. So I usually try and dial that back, just wait till I can save up more money from my day job, and just have more flexibility there, because you can't see anything that would come at you in the future. You just have to be prepared for it. And, failing to plan is planning to fail. So I just make sure I have just enough money in my reserves to cover those large expenses that could come up.
How much was this property listed for?
This one was listed at $174,900, so $100 under 175.
And what did you end up offering?
We actually offered it 100 over asking, and due to the competitive market we were in, we had seen many good properties that were screaming deals at the time, but were overbid by the 5s, the 10s, to 20,000s on the properties by people paying cash, and it was just something that we couldn't compete with. So when we saw this, we didn't want to lowball them just to get cut out by somebody, who put in an offer for asking. So we just bumped it up 100 to a clean 175.
So I remember you said that your original cash to close was around 45 or 40.
It was 40.
So it was around 40. And then you mentioned that inspection process, you got some money off that. What was that called? How did you end up doing that?
So whenever you go through a closing or settlement process for a house, you can have contingency on inspection, and that's part of your offer. And I, of course, checked that box to make sure that I could have a professional inspector come in and check out the house, because I would never be able to see as much due to my experience level as someone as experienced as these inspectors. And when I walked through the building with him, he just showed me all the little things that would cost a decent amount of money over time to fix, and a few big ticket items, of course, like the roof was pretty old, no visible leaks, but it was definitely very old, and a few other things throughout the house that added up to a decent amount of money. Nothing that was immediate that required me to fix it, as soon as I would purchase the property, but enough to create a seller assist proposal. And a seller assist is when the seller will cover part of the cash to close. There's rules on how much you can ask for a duplex. It was 6.5%, I believe. It was somewhere around there. I just Googled that, and it'll let you know what the exact percentage. Hit the max, which was $10,500, and wrote a email to give to my realtor, and he sent that to the selling agent, and the seller accepted the proposal, which reduced my cash to close from $40,000 to just below $30,000. And I remember sitting at breakfast getting that text message and just being pretty happy that I just got a $10,000 text while I was eating my pancakes.
Hell yeah, I was there for breakfast. I remember, man, that both of my deals, the seller assist came in handy, and it's such a tool because you're able to ask, and it puts the ball in your court now. So you're able to ask for up to 6.5% or whatever Caleb said, which in his case was 10,500. There's three things that can happen when you ask for that. One, they say no. And when they say no, you have the option to back out of the deal. So you can if you want, or you can, stick it out. Two, they negotiate. They counter at a lower offer. You can negotiate as much as you want there and accept whatever they give you. Three, they say yes. And that money comes straight from your out-of-pocket cost, which, like Caleb said, an extremely good feeling when you get the email saying back, oh yeah, now you only need to put $30,000 down. It's an incredible feeling. So going from there, how did you finance it?
So I actually had a mortgage broker who I was working with, Todd Hennessy. He brought me in, and we had a good chat for about an hour during the first speaking with him, and he kind of just showed me how everything works, how, if I need to get the numbers on a property, I would send it to him, just email him the address, and he would give me back the breakdown of all the different expenses I'll be looking at, specifically to all the individual taxes, estimated insurance, and the calculated interest rate, depending on what they were getting from the banks that they sell their loans to. So we were actually able to get that pretty quick from him. He gave me the numbers that I liked where they came at. The mortgage was around $1,000. I think it was about $950 a month, including taxes and insurance. So knowing that I would only be paying about $950 plus per month living here, having the comparable rent in the area for just the single one-bedroom unit being over $1,000, I knew it would be a doable deal. But it was all conventional financing. They had a 15% down requirement for the multifamily due to my current situation, so much lower than the commercial investment rates, but it was more expensive than I had originally planned. I was hoping to get a first-time home buyer assistance program that they offered of 5% down, but due to certain reasons that they didn't fully disclose to me directly, they said I wasn't able to get that deal. So got 15% down conventional through them, and it's all was then resold to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac.
And that 15%, that was from you claiming residency there, right? What would it normally be if you didn't claim residency?
I believe it's like 20 to 25% if you don't claim residency. If you do you would have to get a commercial loan on the property, which is a much higher interest rates than a residential loan. And it's just a much different ballgame.
I want to get into kind of the rehab and like things that you needed to do, but I want to give all the listeners a little bit of background. So talk to Caleb a lot about, getting involved in this stuff and, oh yeah, you just got to do this and this and this. And he's like, oh yeah, like, that seems normal. And he's an IT guy and hasn't done much on the construction end of things in the past. And so I
can actually break that down. I've done none. So I've done actually zero. So back in 2006, when my parents bought their first house, I had moved in and I helped paint a few walls. And that was pretty much the extent of my experience. And buying this house was, I figured painting walls, repairing walls, doing plumbing was like, it's not rocket science. I'll just look it up on YouTube. But when you stare at those problems dead in your face and like you got this house that you just bought, it's yours. All these problems are now yours and yours alone. It's a pretty daunting feeling, but it's only because at first I didn't know how to fix them or what was the best way to fix them. And over just a few weeks, learning new things from, friends who knew some trades, YouTube for specific problems I was having, it really changed it up. And I went from, almost being afraid of all the problems that would come up to just looking at it and just seeing like a number of how much it would cost or how much time it would take me to do it. So, if you come from somewhere with a background with a little experience in this, it doesn't take long to get going in it at all.
Yeah, it's awesome. we would all like kind of Caleb would come back, covered in pain or getting worked to the gills, and we knew it was new in this whole process where a lot of us, have been in the trades out of our friend group. That's the type of stuff that we're used to doing. And Caleb was like the smartest one out of all of us. But when it came down to like getting the work done, it definitely took him some time, but it was something that was so respectable. Like it's such a daunting task. Like he was saying, when all that stuff's in front of your face, it's scary. It's especially when you don't know anything about it and it's brand new. And the fact that he was able to get in with a couple friends and YouTube as a resource and get it done, and the place looks great. We're sitting in it now. Like that is, I think, should be such a inspiration or a motivation to someone at home that maybe isn't that handy but knows how to work YouTube. Like it's possible. Like it took him longer to redo this place than it would have taken me, but he got it done and he didn't lose money on it. And he learned all this stuff that took him 2 months or a month. He was able to do that. Even though it took him longer, he learned it. And now when he goes and does the next deal, it's going to take him less time. And then when he does the next deal, it's going to take him less time. And slowly but surely, he's learning. And I don't think there's a better way to do it.
100%. No, it was like night and day difference from the first month to the second month. I purchased this property in September 30th in 2020, and I had it rented out December 1st, 2020. So it was a quick turnaround. I was able to take a pretty beaten up house that had a previous owner who definitely had given up on being a landlord almost a decade ago. And, the property showed. The neighbors definitely let me know as well. And it was a lot to do, but each day that I would put time into it, I would recognize what worked for me personally, what didn't work for me, what was faster, what was slower, and just compounded on itself to moving from the upper unit that I wanted to get done first, get rented out faster so I could have income coming in, to then moving to the downstairs unit. It was a night and day difference, even just after doing one single unit. So I would say if you're not sure if you would be able to handle it, coming from actually having zero experience in it, being able to turn that around and get it done was extremely satisfying for me specifically, because I gave myself a deadline of 2 months exactly to have handing tenants to a key, handing keys to a tenant, sorry. And I got it done, and the unit looks amazing compared to what it did before. So I'm really satisfied with how that turned out.
Yeah, absolutely. So Caleb on his first deal got to do his first eviction too. It wasn't really an eviction. He didn't have to go to court or anything, but in order to fulfill his plan, live in the cheaper unit, the upstairs unit was rented out or was vacant. The downstairs unit was rented out, and he wanted to live in the downstairs unit. So Caleb, kind of, how did that go? How did putting someone's butt on the curb feel?
Well, I could start with saying that any time that you come to somebody and tell them that the place they've been living in for the past year is no longer their place anymore is an uncomfortable conversation, to say the least. But I would say everything started with just at first not knowing what to do, that the fact that there was a tenant in the unit I wanted to live in. And I had talked to my mortgage broker, and I was under the pretense that he would know what the right answer was. But when working as or looking to be a investor in property, you have to know that most people you talk to in the real estate game are for helping people buy houses for themselves. So they have very little experience dealing with tenants and all the other intricacies of being an investor in property. So I had asked my broker if it was a good idea to talk to the seller about letting the tenant know that I wanted to live in the unit that he was living in and that he would have to leave the property. Of course, the broker told me, you don't want to do anything until the property is yours. So I took his advice, waited till it was mine, and had to then tell the tenant myself that he would be having to leave the property. I terminated his lease, gave him the notice that you'd have 60 days to vacate the property with all of his things. And I learned that the previous owner had told the tenant without ever asking me that I was planning on keeping him there forever. And that was unfortunate that he said that to him because I'm not sure where he would have gotten that from. But having that conversation, I just wanted to be as understanding as possible for any issues that he may have with the process of finding a new place and moving all his furniture and getting just set up at a new place. So I just gave him as much leeway as possible with that because I didn't plan on moving in right away due to that circumstance. And I was able to just keep working upstairs while he was looking for a place downstairs. In the end, it did actually work out well. He was able to find a place and get all his things moved out within a month and a week. So it actually did turn out better than initially planned with the 60 days. So I was able to start working on this much faster.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's something I haven't had to come in contact with yet, but I know I will. And so going back to now, like the rehab and stuff that you've done here, like what are some like main things that you've done that you've had to do to the place? How much did it cost? And did you do all the work yourself? Did you bring on any contractors? Like how did that whole process go?
So I've definitely had some help from friends and family, especially, with the costs involved with having, say, a handyman or a contractor or a plumber, electrician come help you out is very expensive. And at the end of the day, they're much faster at getting things done, but you pay 100% for that added benefit. And for these specific units, they were primarily remodeling, so just fixing the outside of things. Lots of wall repair. It was all lath and plaster, so I had to do quite a bit of spackling in the house, prepping and priming everything to make sure that a new coat of paint would not look like the old coat of paint that was on there. Doing professional cleaning of the carpets, that was not something I wanted to spend a whole lot of time doing, and it was actually pretty affordable to do.
How much did it cost?
That was about $400 for the whole house, which was pretty decent, I would say. He had it done in a few hours. And there was some issues on the second floor unit with the subfloor being super like it was sagging about 3 inches in the middle of the room. So if you put a plastic ball in the corner of the room, it would roll fast towards the center of the room. So I knew that replacing the old laminate flooring with a new vinyl plank or even another laminate flooring would definitely have the same issue as the current one was having, where the connections, the tongue and grooves had broken. So what I did was I just had a carpenter come in, put a new layer of carpet down. Granted, I probably could have done that cheaper if I had done it myself, but of course I had a 2-month deadline there and I was a little bit crunched. So I had somebody come in, they did it in an hour, and it was or 2 hours. It was about $500 though to get that room carpeted. So going forward in the future, I learned that if I'm going to do carpet, I'm going to do it myself. Bathrooms were very rough. The toilets, the sinks, the tubs looked like they had never been cleaned before. So we had a good friend of mine been a plumber for about 5 years, so he helped me out rebuilding the toilet with all new hardware on the inside to make it work a lot better. We were able to replace the sink in the bathroom, and then I completely cleaned out and redid the tub in the upstairs bathroom, resealed everything, and fixed all the broken grout, and actually had to run a new outlet in there as well, and wire that up to the panel because there wasn't a single outlet in the bathroom, which is pretty rough, with all electric toothbrushes and hair dryers people use. But it was a lot of small things that I had to learn to get done, but with picking a specific problem to do each day, getting that problem done, and then picking the next problem to start working on, just kept going and going, didn't think about it too much, just fixed everything I could find as fast as I could.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to give a special shout out to our plumbing buddy, Josh Groff.
He's the best.
He's been pivotal for both of us. Plumbing, something I went to school for, but it sucks. Plumbing's the worst. And having an extra set of hands, for my projects and being able to help Caleb the way he did, he's been instrumental in finding guys like that, finding someone you can count on to come over and work with you until 1 a.m. It's a rarity. So special shout out to him. And with that, I think that wraps up our diagnosis. If you want to just do a quick breakdown of it, like a bullet point, like purchase price, rent it out.
Oh yeah.
This is my cash flow.
So right now, purchase price came out to 175. With the down payment and everything, the loan only came out to 148,000. So month to month on mortgage, tax, insurance, it's about $950 plus, of course, all of your utilities, electric, gas, or electric, water, sewer, internet. It comes down to about 1270 a month, 1280 of the full breakdown with expenses, and then the current income from the upstairs unit that I rented out is $1250. So currently, while I'm living here, I'm spending $20 a month on everything, including the internet bill.
Dang, that's a pretty expensive rent.
I know.
$20. Jeez.
Breaking the bank, man.
Breaking the bank. That must be hard. What are you thinking then when you move out of this place? What can you get for the 1 bedroom, and then what will your cash flow be total from this one as well?
So currently, as it stands, once everything's all tidied up and all the odds and ends are finished, I'm looking at about $1050 a month for this unit. And so that'll actually, the electric is broken out tenant to tenant, so that would remove my expense for electric once someone else is in here paying for their own, and then add $1,050 to the income. So making that $2,300 a month of income, and then the same, if not a little bit less, expenses per month. So we'd be looking at about a little over $1,000 of income per month for this property.
Which is freaking fire.
Yeah, can't complain.
A rule of thumb, like a quick kind of breakdown that doesn't always work. It's a rough calculation, but normally using the 1% rule for a purchase price of an investment property, you want your monthly income, which Caleb said his should be around $2,300 a month. That should be 1% or more of your purchase price. So if Caleb paid $230,000 for this property, it would have still fit that rule, which is he paid $175 or $165. So he got a really good deal. And that's kind of just a short version of how to break down the numbers. But I think that was a really good synopsis of this deal. Now we're going to turn the tables a little bit, and I'll tell you about my first one. Since I'm assuming that for this podcast, at least, the only listeners are going to be from Facebook and, are our friends and family, and most of you know me, but I'd like to kind of dive deeper into my story just because building that framework for kind of the person I am and why I am the way I am and why we're making this podcast, I think that background is important. So, starting at 7, I lived in an apartment with my mom, and it was just me and her. I'm an only child, and money was always tight. With that being said, my mom is the type of person that if she only had $50 in her bank account, which was the case sometimes, and I needed $50 for a school trip, she would give it to me without blinking. She didn't teach me good finances, but she did teach me to be accepting and was always my number one supporter. My dad, he's a carpenter by trade. Currently, he's driving trucks, and our relationship didn't really start to form or grow to what it is now until I was about 17 or 18, and I moved into his place because he started truck driving. Now we're super close, and he helps me with a lot of my projects, and whether through real estate or my business, he's been an incredible support. And writing down a lot of this stuff, like about my background and things like that, it really helped put into perspective, my childhood, some could say wasn't the greatest. And, there's a lot of turmoil and stuff like that. But no matter what, my parents thought the world of me. And I was very fortunate to have that. But anyway, so going back to, not having a lot of money, living with my mom, I turned to an entrepreneur very early. I didn't want to be that burden on my mom, even though she didn't see it as such. But I knew that me asking for money was going to hurt in the long run. So, one of my first little side hustles was I would go to Ross and I would buy the Skull Candy headphones there for $8. And then I would go in middle school and I would sell them for $20. And I would sell gum. We would go door to door and rake leaves, shovel snow, anything to make that money and to help kind of offset that situation. And, I was a real shithead in school. I was smart, but I wasn't the smartest. I was fast, but I wasn't the fastest. And I never really felt like I belonged. I knew that college was out of the picture. So school didn't really matter to me. I liked fucking around. I was the class clown and I tormented my teachers. I spent more time in ISS, the in-school suspension, than in class during middle school. I found myself starting to feel accepted when I started drinking and smoking and doing that kind of stuff with the older kids. And, this lifestyle as a delinquent led me to being arrested, kicked out of my house, and ultimately drank myself into a coma that I was in for 2 days in the ICU. And this was all by the time I was 14. When I got out of the coma, I was given kind of the mandatory option to check into rehab. And so I did that. I was there for 6 weeks and I came out and gave it a shot. I gave, being clean some effort. I wanted to see maybe I did have some potential. And I joined a 12-step fellowship, and that's, I went to meetings religiously every night, 2 times a night, and it ultimately changed my life. And this coming April, it'll be 10 years that I haven't had anything to drink or any drugs or anything like that. So with that being said, at 14 I got clean and I started high school clean. I went to the tech school for HVAC and plumbing and I learned the trade. I worked as an apprentice during the summers. During the week, Caleb worked with me. We used to go door to door in rich neighborhoods in the main line and sell newspaper subscriptions. It was such a sketchy business, but we made pretty good money as kids. And what I did was I moved my addictive personality from the lifestyle before to money. I worked crazy hours during the summer. I worked during the week. Every day was just hustling. And that never really stopped. I'm still kind of the same way. But I think it's a lot better thing to be addictive to than the prior. It wasn't until my junior year that a school came to visit, and they were a college. It was a trade college, but it was ran like a military school. You had to be up at 6 a.m., you wore a suit and tie for inspection. There was no girls. There was no drinking. There was random drug tests. You couldn't have your phone. Your shoes had to be shined. Your short hair, shaved face. And long story short, there was just a lot of rules. It's like, why would anyone want to go there? The reason I wanted to go there was it was free, and free is for me. 100 guys get accepted every year. You live there, eat there, and graduate with an associate's degree in 3 years. To qualify, all you needed was to be below the poverty line, which my mother was, and score well on the ASVAB, which is the military entrance exam, which I did. I ended up going for paint and coatings technology. To then, I wanted to get into the industrial side of like either pipeline or bridges or something like that, doing the coatings on them because I knew there was good money in it. I learned some of that stuff, but mainly learned how to paint walls in houses. And that was kind of embarrassing to tell people like that I was going to school for painting, but it made me want to make the most of it. And my second year in the school is when I started my business. I went door to door. Well, first I went to the borough and I got permits, and then I went door to door and made business cards and gave them out. And after giving like 500 business cards out, I got 2 jobs, which eventually those 2 jobs turned into a full business where by word of mouth was able to be busy every single night and had 1 to 5 classmates working with me every single night for the next 2 years. And, this school made it possible for me to dream bigger. I had made more money during the school year working 5 hours a day, we had from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. was lights out. So that was the time I had to hustle. And painting a house in 5 hours is pretty tough. But when you have 5 people doing it, it's a lot more doable. And, I had made more money during that time in the school year working those nights and some weekends than either of my parents had ever made. I graduated there at the top of my class and decided to play it safe. And I, still think about it, whether I should have went into business for myself, but I ended up getting a job as a pipeliner, working all over the country after graduation. I still want to do the painting stuff on the side. My real goal out of college was that I wanted to make 6 figures my first year out of school. I felt the embarrassment from going to school for painting, and I wanted to prove that I could become successful from that. And so I had to maximize both of my jobs because I was making, I think, like $25 an hour out of school, but I was working 80 hours a week, all the overtime, per diem, stuff like that. And then on the weekends, I was painting houses to hit that goal. And at this point, I was still driving my grandma's 2001 Toyota Sienna. It was a minivan, and that was my work truck. And, I saw all my classmates buying new trucks and nice cars, and it was really tempting. I actually even went and drove a used Tesla that they were asking $30,000 for, which I was considering paying, and I just decided to suck it up and save for the next opportunity. And, having always had a landlord growing up, they never really did anything. We never really called them. I was kind of handy, so I did what needed to be done. And when I started looking at buying a house, I saw that the mortgage payments were cheaper or about the same as what rent was in my area. And it was like, wait, the gears started turning when I saw how much a mortgage was. And if I could afford the down payment for a house and get tenants in there, I could essentially print money forever. I decided that this was the route that I wanted to go, and I didn't know really what to do. So I looked into getting my real estate license as a side hustle so that I could learn, the process of buying a house and how mortgages work, and, eventually save on my own commissions. The course costed like $800, and then to hang my license somewhere else with everything, it was like $2,500. So I did this with Keller Williams, and I joined a team with Chris Hennessy, and a month later I bought my first house, which was a triplex. And I'll get into that, but my commission from that was around $3,000, so I had paid my investment back on the first deal just for my commission. And I helped a friend buy a house too. I got a commission off of that. Transferred my license to a referral agent, made some commissions off of that. Now I'm back in as an agent because I'm planning on hopping in more and doing some more deals and stuff like that. So I claimed residency in that triplex for a year, and then just a few months back I bought a duplex, and that's where I'm living now.
Could I ask, though, when did you start learning that the best route forward was to buy the multifamily deals and not single families? Because a lot of people currently at the moment do buy single families and rent them right back out again. Like, had any eureka moments where you knew this strategy came up, or was it like a gradual process of this is exactly how I want to attack real estate?
So when I went to the real estate class, the instructor was a landlord, and he had lots of properties. He was an older guy, and he would talk about it. I came up to him after like the first or second class and was like, hey, so I'm this age, I'm 21 or 22, however old I was. I've got this much money in the bank. What exactly would you do? And he said, have you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? And I was like, no, you freaking dork. I don't want to read a book. Like, I wanted him to tell me what house I should buy, how much I should buy it for, what I should rent it for, and like the steps in order to, like, what I should do. Look, you did it. What would you do if you were my age? he says, read a book. So I ended up reading it. I listened to the audiobook. It's for free on YouTube, and I can't stress enough to get the gears turning for everyone listening to go give it a listen or read it. It's free on YouTube, so go check it out. I listened to that and realized that the difference between an asset and a liability, that was to me the crowning jewel of that book. And to make it short, an asset makes you money and a liability does not make you money. And, we could get into the whole debate of, is your house that you live in an asset? Some people don't think so. Some people do. That's not the point, but putting your money into something that's going to create more money for you. Sorry, I just kind of didn't answer your question, but to circle back to why multifamily and not single family was because I learned in my real estate class that 1, 2, 3, and 4 units, so a single, duplex, triplex, and quadruplex, are all considered the same exact thing. You can get the same loans for it, the same down payment, and they pretty much have the same rules. So when I learned that, it was like, wait, so I could buy a single house and rent it for $1,300, or I could buy a duplex and rent it for $1,300 each and make $2,600, or I could buy a truck, and that was the switch. That was like, I want a 4-unit. I was looking for a 4-unit. The more units, the better. Having more renters, to me, also is like, if someone moves out, I'm not dying. My rule of thumb that I kind of created was, I need to be able to live here and it still be paid for, which means when I move out, 1 unit could be vacant all year round and I would be okay. And that flexibility that you have with multifamily there, you don't have with single family. So that's my answer to that.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense, especially with the vacancy rate. With the more doors you have, the lower the risk you have of having 100% vacancy rates.
Right.
So now we're going to go and break down your first deal that you picked up, the property in Quakertown here. So let's start with, how did you raise the capital for the deal?
So getting the capital was mainly done through my business at Williamson. That side hustle that started as I wanted something to do to make money in my free time at night. So it started as cleaning gutters. That was originally my business model, because I was like, okay, I'm by myself. There's low overhead costs. I just need a ladder and a bucket and like a coat hanger to unclog drains. And I could make $100 a house, do 2 or 3 houses a night, because they don't take that long. Make $300 a night. And when that turned to people, when I told people that I went to school for painting, they're like, oh, well, we need a painter. Can you paint our house? I was like, sure, let me ask my buddies. And we were working every single night, Monday through Thursday. Then, some projects into the weekends, but we stayed busy. I wasn't hurting for the cash at that point. So after we kind of built a little bit of a reputation in the area, I was able to really charge a lot. Like I was charging way too much to paint these people's houses. But we did a former NFL player. We did the vice president of Campbell Soup's house. We had some high-end clients. We had some slumlords. We had, everything in between. And it didn't matter if my estimates were too high, because if it wasn't worth it for me, I didn't need the money. I didn't need to make it work. So I asked high, and my high asks were still less than, some of the other high-end painters. So it worked out really good. It was very fortunate. And to have the network of other trades at my school, I knew a masonry guy, I knew a construction guy, I knew a landscaping guy. I'd give these guys $100 a night, because if not, they were just watching TV at the dorm for that hour, to go work for 5 hours, make $100, $20 an hour. Everyone was happy. There was nights that I ended up breaking down, doing my post job assessment. Like afterwards, I would like go over the numbers and the hours, and there were some nights I was making over $200 an hour, and I was like, holy crap, this is the way to do it. So, I was able to save up a fair amount. I think by the time I was ready to buy my first place, I had a little over 60,000 saved in the bank, and that was pretty much all from painting, and at that point it was working on the side as well. So
what was the process that you started after that to help you find a deal that would let you have acceptable numbers for your investment?
yeah, so like I didn't know anything. Like I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have someone who knew what was going on, who knew what was a good deal and who knew what was a bad deal. I was just looking, and I was doing the same thing that you said earlier, like, okay, this is what I think I could get for rents. This is what they're asking. If my mortgage is this much, then I can make money and still live there. So that's for this particular property, it was listed at $395,000, and the listing agent screwed up and had it listed as a single family house for 6 months. When she realized and changed the listing to multifamily, in my search that I had set up with, because I was a realtor, I had it come to me the second that it came on the market, and I saw it was a triplex. There was a single family house in the front and a split duplex in the back of the property, all in the same thing. So two different buildings on the same piece of property. Looked at the rents real quick. I saw that I could probably get at least $1,000 a month for both duplexes, and then the house was probably closer to $1,200 to $1,400. I didn't really know. So when they changed the listing, they changed it from $395 to $330. The second that I saw that, I ran some rough numbers, and I called the listing agent within an hour of the listing. I called her. She was actually at the house with the seller, and she told me to come by. So I came over, and it was an older gentleman who built the duplex in the back, and he owned multiple other investment properties and stuff like that, and he's slowly getting rid of them. We're talking. I told him I want to live in the cheapest unit. I want to rent the other things out, and he knew I was on the right track. I asked him, I was like, are you flexible on your asking price? And he said, give me an offer. And I went to my mortgage guy, who's also Todd Hennessy at Cross Country Mortgage, and I asked him, I was like, okay, I was already pre-approved. I knew I was eligible for a 5% down conventional. And why? I don't know. Some people, that was what Caleb was talking about. He wasn't able to get that. We still didn't get a solid answer on why. It might have just been the banks, changing policy or whatever. But at the time, that was an option. So, because it was my first time purchasing a home, I said, what can I put down, or what can I offer, and my mortgage payment be under $2,000 a month with 5% down conventional? So he ran the numbers, and he said the highest that I could pay and have that mortgage payment was $285,000. And the 2,000 mark was me, saying, well, at least even if the most expensive unit is vacant, I'd still be okay. So if, the duplexes were $1,000 each and the other one was $1,400, as long as I had the $2,000 coming in, I'd be fine. And so that was my criteria that I made for myself. He said the highest I could go was $285, so I came back and I made him an offer for $268,750 because I had read somewhere that specific numbers make you seem smarter, which
Facts.
wasn't really the case, but it kind of worked. So then he countered back at, I believe it was $290, I countered back at 275. He countered back at 280. So 285 was the most I wanted to spend. We settled at 280. And then going forward through the settlement process, he actually didn't want to know about the inspections, which I thought was kind of weird. I didn't really understand. I thought it seemed pretty sketchy. I had Musselman Home Inspection come out, and they did such a phenomenal job. He took me corner to corner, outside, inside of every room, pointed out everything, prioritized, like gave me a list of everything, whether it's urgent, whether it's not, and gave it all to me. And it cost like $400 for this triplex. And that was definitely money well invested, but the seller said he didn't want to know about it. And I found out later that the reason is if you don't know about something, you're not required to disclose it when selling it. If he now knew that the roof was bad and the electric was not safe, if the deal didn't go through with me, he would have to disclose that when trying to sell it again. So after inspection, I found some things. It was mainly cosmetic. There was a couple things that I wanted to add, but I sent him an email and I said, hey, the cost for me to hire a contractor out to do everything that the inspection said would be probably around $10,000. I just want $3,000. And he accepted it, and we went from there. So that was that.
So going more specifically into the financing of the deal, how did you come up with the full entire amount for the property, and what were the specifics that you ended up having to pay for the triplex?
So, like I said, I was eligible for the 5% down conventional loan, which ended up bringing my closing costs to, I want to say, around $30,000. It was actually $33,000. I was my own agent, so I got the $3,000 back in commission, and then I got $3,000 for the seller's assist. So that brought that $33,000 down to $24,000 out of pocket, or $27,000 out of pocket, and then I got $3,000 back for my commission. The actual final numbers came through. My mortgage payment, which was, the mortgage, the taxes, and the insurance, it came to $19.45 a month was my payment. And for the rents, I was able to get, for the single house in the front, it was a 2.5 bed, 1 bath. The half bedroom is just like a carriage room. It's like you have to walk through one bedroom to get to the other bedroom. So I listed as 2.5 and 1 bath. And I had it listed for $1,400. I had a bunch of people come through and look at it, all from Facebook Marketplace. And I was down to 3 qualified tenants that met my criteria of, at least 600 credit score, at least the combined household income was over 3 times the rental amount. Pets was a big thing. Everyone has pets. It's so annoying finding tenants without pets because everyone has one. And now I have one too, and I definitely understand. But at first I did not. And so anyway, I had 3 qualified people that I was weighing the pros and cons. And one of the other prospective tenants that didn't qualify, I think it was from their income, called me during this process and said, hey, I'll pay the year in cash. We just sold our house. And I thought about it for a second and said, deal. So that was a mistake, and we'll get into that later. It ended up working out fine, but definitely don't do that. I ended up giving him a deal because he was paying the year in advance, and so he paid $16,000 for the year, which ended up being about $1,333 a month. This property was also all completely split. Electric was separately metered, and it was all electric baseboard heat in all 3 units, and then window air conditioners for AC, so tenants all pay their own heat and AC. The water and sewer were separately metered. So the tenants all pay their own water and sewer. And when I bought the place, I didn't really take that into consideration. And now I know how good of a situation that was, because to do that definitely costs some money. I'm actually looking into doing some of that at my duplex now, splitting up the water. But yeah, so that was the first one. And then I was living in the upstairs apartment of the duplex, and a friend of ours, Jordan, he has been a good friend of mine all throughout high school, and he was renting a place out in the middle of nowhere, and he was driving pretty far for work. And when I told him I was looking at something like this, he said that wherever I went, he'd be down to be a tenant. And we had talked more, and we agreed, like, you can pay less rent and then be acting property manager. So what that meant for this place was, he mowed the grass, he shoveled the snow, he took the phone calls from the other tenants that if there was something little they needed done, they would call him, and I would talk to him directly. It was also nice having a friend live there. And so I thought at the time that I could probably get around $1,100 a month for this apartment. So I charged him $950 as kind of the payment for being that property manager. He was totally cool with it. So now I had $950, $1,333 coming in, which ends up being, what's that, close to $2,300. And my only expenses were the mortgage, which was $1,950, and trash, which was $400 a year, which is like $33 a month or something like that. So I was living there, cash flowing close to $300 every month, and I was super excited about that.
So knowing that the numbers really worked out for that property, and from deals that I've analyzed, that definitely seemed almost like a unicorn from what I saw around this area. So that's a really good deal that you found there. And I just wanted to go more specifically into just work that you had to do on the property before you rented it out, and just some of the numbers on what that cost you.
So this place, it was pretty much turnkey. There wasn't a lot that needed to be done. The only real issues were the downstairs apartment smelled like cigarettes, and that was the real issue. The rest was cosmetic. So I did a lot of stuff like putting new mailbox posts in, wrapping the deck with lattice, painting, staining the deck. I did minor repairs in the house, like touching up paint, fixing loose railings. And in the duplex, I had painted both units and, again, some minor repairs, replaced traps under the sinks and stuff like that. When I bought the place, it came with one set of washer and dryer and 2 fridges. So I had to get 2 more sets of washers and dryers, and then I made the tenant of the house responsible for buying themselves a new fridge. The washers and dryers, almost everything in my apartments are from Facebook Marketplace, and a washer and dryer set for $100 is pretty common to find. It's definitely a deal, but they work. So I did that, $200 with the other repairs and stuff, maybe another $500. And there was later on, we lived in there. We made our apartment beautiful, and I have to give my fiance Kayla credit, because that shit doesn't really matter to me that much, how aesthetically pleasing it is, but for finding tenants, it is extremely valuable. What takes the best picture? How's the furniture set up? What's the color scheme? What are the things that you have hanging on the wall? Like, those things will bring more people to your open houses, and I learned that. So we did stuff like we put new flooring down in the bathroom and the walkway. We added a ceiling fan. We did, I did faux finish on the accent wall and as a backsplash in the kitchen, and little things here and there, but really, really increased the value. And when we went to move out and find a new tenant, we were able to get $1,250 a month for that apartment. So we also got a new tenant after the year of in the house, and went from $1,333 to the full $1,400. And getting the units leased during settlement, like, I didn't own the house yet, but I took the pictures from the listing and I put them on Facebook Marketplace, and I said it wouldn't be available until the settlement date to look at. And the day that settlement came, I had 20 people already ready to see the house. So that was such a big time saver. So I bought the house August 28th of 2019, and I had both leases start September 1st. So within 3 days, had both of my other leases start, which was huge.
And just to reiterate that, it was that you were using the pictures that the seller of the house listed to then repost directly to Facebook Marketplace to have potential tenants look at and see, and then have everybody lined up to check the place out immediately to prevent that downtime. Because each month you don't have a new property rented out is how many hundreds, if not thousands of dollars you're missing out on, which is a huge deal.
Exactly. So Facebook Marketplace has been such a good tool. And then having how Kayla decorated it, the turnout was crazy. And the way that we do open houses is I'm not finding a time that works for every single person individually. I would not have a life. It would take so long for me to run back and forth, go to these places because, only 8 o'clock on Monday works for me. Or, I do 4-hour window, Saturday and Sunday, come then. And I have applications ready, and it makes the whole process go a lot smoother. And so we were able to, when we were moving out, we put the place up before I even knew what my next property was going to be. I knew that by the end of the year of us living there, we were either going to buy a new place or we were going to move back in with her mom or my dad, or, that was the next step, because if I don't need to live there, I'd rather have that cash flow. So it ended up working out great. We found a deal in that time frame and had tenants lined up the second we moved out. So now...
So going with the repair, I remember you mentioning before you were doing some more serious work with the front house. You did some renovations actually to the bathroom itself. And had you done anything like that before, like taking down walls, anything like more serious prior to doing that?
Yeah, so sorry, I totally forgot that we did that. That was a part of something we did while the tenants were there, while we were living there. I had the time, and I was kind of thinking of, or I actually read something that adding a half bathroom to a single family house in my area could increase the value up to 10%, which 10% on 300,000,
that's a lot of money,
is 30,000. So I looked at the layout of the house. Currently the one bathroom was on the second floor, so I thought having a half bathroom on the first floor would be really nice. And there's a crawl space in the laundry room underneath that had all the plumbing exposed. It had the water lines, it had the drain lines for the sewer, because the second floor bathroom was right on top of it. And I was like, this is perfect. This is a perfect spot for a second bathroom. So, like I said, I went to school for HVAC and plumbing. I replaced my fair share of toilets and water heaters and ran piping, but never did a job like that by myself. So at the time, I actually had a really good friend of mine who owed me some money, and I told him, I was like, hey, would you be willing to work out paying me back this money just through doing this bathroom? And so all in all, the bathroom, with getting repaid the debts, it cost me less than $2,500 with the toilet, the vanity, the framing for the new walls, the door, everything. I didn't raise the rents dramatically. I didn't raise them much, but I know eventually I will be able to kind of once it's time.
And those bathrooms make a huge difference in the value of your rental, especially comparing something like a 2 beds 1 bath to a 2 beds 1.5 baths. It's a pretty substantial difference because everybody knows having an extra bathroom is a huge difference where you're living. Were there any other large projects you did on the property besides adding that half bath?
No, the something that I'd like to do is put a driveway in next to the house. The curb's already cut for it, but it's kind of.
And that's another thing you got to measure, like the cost of how much that'll cost you to put in versus over time. How long will that investment take to pay itself back off again? And there's balances there for everything that we're looking to do to make sure we're not dumping more money than we need to just to make small benefits. And there's also other factors, of course, besides money. I know specifically there's some jobs I would like to do to prevent headaches in the future. Calls in the middle of the night for flooding in the basement just require some extra sump pumps getting added in. Small things like that are super important to think about when you're looking at a property to see, how much money you're going to put in and how much it's going to pull out from you and the whole different factors. And now that you've got the property fully rented out, all 3 units occupied with tenants, what are the current cash flow numbers you're looking at now?
So like I said, with ours, we're getting $1,250 from, $950 from Jordan, and that's the expense to have someone do his thing. Is it worth $300 a month? Maybe not, but for the peace of mind and the fact that it's still cash flowing, it's fine with me. Eventually, I've been pushing him to do the same thing. I've wanted him to buy a duplex or a triplex since he moved in because he's a smart dude, and he always tells me, he's like, oh man, I don't want to have all the responsibility. I was like, dude, that's literally you do. Like, you have all the responsibility.
We'll get him one day.
We'll get him one day. But so yeah, $1,250 plus $950, and now $1,400 from the single house brings it to a total of $3,600 a month. And then after the mortgage and the trash, which are my only expenses there, besides for keeping that $10,000 cash reserve, brings my cash flow to $1,619 a month. So we use, again, going back to that 1% rule, $3,600 a month. That house would be a good deal if I bought it at $360,000. So that's that.
Yeah, definitely a really good deal. And of course, what you were mentioning before about paying that $300 difference coming in from Jordan's unit. I mean, headaches cost a lot of money too, and it's not always factorable the same way the numbers are. So I definitely feel like that is still a solid deal. And $1,600 coming in every month, on top of your day job, the peace of mind that you have for that over time as it builds up, and then you can expand into getting more properties, just the freedom that you have to be able to make certain decisions if you need to take a leave of absence from work. And if you don't have any extra income besides your day job, you're really constrained on decisions and choices you make in the future to always having to trade that 40 hours minimum a week just to make enough to live. So I really like the strategy here. Just really is going to be life-changing for anybody that goes down it. And of course, it's a decent amount of work. The first couple of months you buy a property, you're going to be, spending nights and weekends at your property trying to get it done as fast as possible. But when you're done, you're done. You kick your feet up on your new couch in your new house and get to think about over time, you'll be building some more generational wealth. So going forward, Jake, where do you see yourself in the next few years?
So we didn't have time to get into the next deal that I've been going into, but just short and sweet, right now we're living in a duplex, cash flowing $90 a month, and when we move out of there, we should be cash flowing $1,190 a month. So you add that to the cash flow from the triplex, which is $1,619, and that equals $2,800, $2,809 a month in passive income. And that was in the course of 3 years with $60,000 out of my pocket. That equals $33,708 a year in passive income. Me and Kayla's needs I've broken down our costs for, insurance payments, phone payments, gas, food, shopping, doing fun trips, going out to eat, and what we need to live a comfortable lifestyle, and pinching pennies, we did that. We were very frugal, but running the comfortable numbers is around 40,000 a year. It is to meet our needs. Like I said, like we were very frugal, pinching pennies, definitely for a while, but that 40,000 a year is pretty comfy. So my plan is to buy 2 more multifamily properties. My goal is at the end of the year, which would be around August or September, would be to buy 4
And that was
unit.
the end of the year from buying your most recent property, which is requirement for claiming residency.
You got it. And so that to buy a fourplex, and then the next year either another triplex or duplex. And the goal then is to have a passive cash flow of $6,000 per month. That's my number that would give us essentially retirement in the next 2 years. We want to take a year and travel, spend time, and not on a crunch to not a week, not 2 weeks that we took a vacation, like actually quit my job and go experience life. And, that's something that I would love to do. And, I love my job and I like what I do, but it's definitely not my passion. And I really want to, be able to make a difference, and doing something like this, or, even creating some type of leadership retreat where I can take my passions of the outdoors, of rock climbing, hiking, canoeing, and camping, and turn that into like a semi-normal retreat that, I can take people out on, and we can talk about passive income and talk about like planning personal finance and disconnect from your phones and reevaluate life and money and how people view money. And that's something that's I'm extremely passionate about, and that's my honest goal. And then, to go from there down the line, I see myself always being involved in real estate and wanting to build and grow and make more money, not to just be some rich guy, but to be able to make a difference. And I think a lot of people see wealth as greed in this economy, in this world. It's viewed as this greedy thing, and your landlord's just a greedy person. And I don't view it that way. And I really think that the only way to be able to make a difference and to make a real positive impact in people's lives is it takes money to do whatever you want to do, whatever your passions, whatever your goals are. Money is essential for that. And look, like, I'm sorry, that was a really long podcast. We were hoping to keep this under an hour, and I don't think that that's going to happen. And,
No.
Hey, it is what it is. But we thought that introduction of ourselves, kind of giving our backgrounds and who we are and why we're doing this, is essential. And next week, we're planning on jumping into some of our biggest failures and how they've affected us long term, for the good or for the bad, and hopefully answer some questions from you guys. If you want to leave a comment on the video or send us messages, you can find me on Facebook or Instagram. Caleb's on Instagram, and those will be in the notes if you want to find us there, and send us a message. Ask a question, and we'd love to talk to some of our friends about things. Like, we're not the experts. We're not here telling you like, oh, this is what you should do now. It's like having more people, more ears on your problems makes them seem a lot easier. And by us being able to do something like that, just think about it for a second. Like, what would we do maybe in that situation? Whether it's the right answer or not, like, we'd love for some people to get started. And we're also hoping to do a segment on every episode that we're going to take an existing listing from the MLS, like something that's on the market right now in our area and break down the numbers, break down what our thoughts are on it, how to make it work. And if you're looking to jump in, like, it could be a real opportunity. So
If you're also, know somebody who has a different perspective on real estate investing and would be able to give that perspective to, people getting started, people who have already been started but just love to learn more, definitely let us know as well. We're interested in, of course, having people on the show where they can let us know their experience and, give us some knowledge there. We'd definitely be interested. Shoot us a message, of course, on social medias, and we'd love to get in contact.
100%. And whether it's real estate or not, whether you just have like a really successful uncle who started a business, like someone who that's good at trading stocks, like we're gonna have Jordan on at some point. He does really well with that, and we'd love to have as many successful people on as we can, because there's so many routes to success, and real estate is definitely a slow one. It's a way to build slow wealth. You're not gonna be a millionaire tomorrow, but there are all these routes and all these different options, and we grow this community of people striving to find success. Like, the world, it's limitless. Like, there's so much that we could do. And also, if anyone's listening to this and is like, this sounds awesome, like, what can I do? Like, I want to give like a little bit of homework, or at least 2 actionable steps that you could do until our podcast next week. And one would be what I said earlier, that go on YouTube or buy the book, Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. It's a really good pivoting point for a lot of people who invest in real estate. Like, this is the book that has done it for a lot of people, that just changed your mindset about money and finance. And if you're feeling extra motivated and want to do something else, another podcast out there is the Bigger Pockets Real Estate Podcast. They have a forum as well. Join the forum. They answer tons of questions about like being a landlord, buying a property, analyzing a deal. Like, it's a great community, and it's kind of a larger scale podcast where they talk about so many different options of how you can get started, either in wholesaling, flipping, rentals, commercial properties, industrial properties, being a real estate agent. Like, there's a lot to pick and choose from, and me and Caleb have both learned a lot from that podcast. So what we're trying to do is a more beginner friendly option of that. But definitely take a look into it.
Yeah, it's a great resource. Tons and tons of information. They've got well over 400 episodes with really high profile guests who have been absolutely killing it and are making massive amounts of money. And they of course go over their specific strategies, but we're more focused on looking towards what's successful in our local market, what has worked well for us, what hasn't worked well for us, and how to directly translate that knowledge to people who just want to get started in the real estate investment game. So definitely let us know if we can provide you any more information on any specific questions. But it's been a long time, but it's been a good time. So of course, going forward, look out for our next episode. You have a good one, guys.